keeping the
We are not.
reliance on
I
appropriation.
just put that up on the screen, or what are you doing?
Oh, we're like, that was my machine. And now
Go hand them
everything's
out.
broken again.
Oh, you-
Can't. Give me a sec. No. Well, I can hand out one. I figured this out.
I'll hand them.
Perfect. I'm gonna keep on this time so I don't forget. Oh, thank you very much.
You know, as we go through this, the print gets smaller, you know, that's not.
Well, you just have to add fewer things. And the print can get bigger.
Yeah, that's an interesting format. Okay, now we are on the one time. All general fund.
Where we go? So same deal. This one. We have the revenue, the one-time revenue on cost part. And then go through the one times, the changes that you all discussed yesterday, that are on that separate sheet of additional asks I've added, where appropriate to here, so that it's part of the whole construct. But just starting up at the top on line 1, this is the reversions from prior year appropriations. This is what I spoke to yesterday. It's changing slightly because instead of reversions of 2026 appropriations, we're going to reduce the appropriations. We'll change the amount on the bottom line. Line 2, this is the $30 million that was supposed to be unreserved from the money that was set aside at year end last year to be utilized for property tax relief. Line 3, this is the amount of money that will carry forward from FY26 into FY27 to utilize to balance the budget. This goes up a little bit in the Senate construct again because of those technicalities between reversions and modifying 2026 appropriations. On line 4, I've changed the transfer from the Technology Modernization Fund to reflect only utilizing half of the funds, as was discussed yesterday. And then in line 5, this is in yellow because we have not settled on it yet, but once the base appropriations are figured out, the House and the governor had in the ballpark of $30 million remaining on the bottom line once of base funding, once all was said and done, and those funds pull forward and get utilized to cover one-time appropriation. So, and then going down to the general fund appropriation, so same deal, left the Senate fund, the Senate column blank. I did add in some more information. It was a little bit easier on the one time in terms of what's new, what's in the base, what's been funded in the past, just to provide that context. So on line 1, we have the agency of administration, oh, sorry, line 6, sorry. Continuing the Ideal Vermont program at Agency of Administration.
Can you remind me?
It's in the Office of Racial Equity, I believe. And
Oh, right, yeah. I remember. You go to do this.
Yeah. And then line 7, this is the final year of the Truth and Reconciliation funding. I believe this is the third of 3 years of funding.
Right, final year.
Yeah. In line 8, this is funding that we've never done before, for the Department of Vermont Health Access for technology updates associated with the implementation of HR1, also known as OBBA, One Big Beautiful Bill Act, that the Congress passed back in July. They need to make some adjustments to the current systems, I believe, related to changes in Medicaid eligibility, when redeterminations have to happen, and other things. So it's new, but probably necessary. In line 9, $2 million to the Department of Health Access for provider stabilization.
This is going to be part of our memo also.
The Lions, you know.
I got 3 more.
Good. Okay, we'll learn more about that later tonight.
And the shelter development too, Jenny?
Pardon me?
And also the line below it, the shelter development?
Probably.
No, that's not, I don't have that in my memo.
As part of 938.
But that, right,
Yes,
lines 10 through
14.
14 are all,
938, the bill, the homeless continuum of care bill. Yeah.
So am I, I'm just looking at the reduction from the governor's recommendation to the House. I was wondering if they've put, yeah, it looks like they've put the same amount of money in different places.
yeah,
Correct. Yeah, so that lines 10 through 14 equal $21.18 million. And in the House, this version of 938, they re-point some funds.
But again, just across between one-time and base, it's $82.6 million. And the House basically did the same amount of money to the governor, but are allocating it in separate. So the budget's just holding basically.
and well, health and welfare is doing the same thing with the same, at least the same dollar.
Line 15 this is an appropriation added by the House to backfill a base reduction in the governor. So the governor reduced the base for the nurturing parenting program by the 160,000 with a little bit of local commitment funds. And so it's a base reduction that's backfilled with one-time funds, but it leaves $209,000 in the base budget.
Okay.
Is that the prevention use?
Yes. Yeah, no, it's fine.
This is like an option for them.
Or is this one?
It might be.
Prevention,
Prevention.
Is that the one?
the nurturing parent program
Yeah,
There's one?
is prevention.
Oh, I'm thinking of the post-permanency adoption services. Right. It's not sure where now. Is that what this is? No.
So in line, I'll go to line 16. Is funding for the concrete supports program at the parent-child centers. This is similarly a backfill of a base reduction that was proposed by the governor with one-time money. And there's $7 million of funding for the parent-child centers in the base budget.
But is that 7 million level funding up in last year?
Yes.
so
I believe so.
because I think we increased the base last year. Maybe we get funded.
I just asked that because I don't think the parent child centers were in the DA's.
Yeah, there should be.
Line 17 is a new grant at Homelessness Vermont. Line 18 is,
So says it's new, what does that mean?
meaning it's never been done.
Yeah, but what is the program?
It's around disability and homelessness and tracking disability cases.
The DCF,
It is health and welfare to look at some of these other things that are in there, just in their area. We could use.
Right, line 18, the supervised visitation programs at DCF. There's new one-time money. Never done one-time money for this before. It's in addition to what's in the base budget of $100,000 federal funds and 370,000 in base. DCF.
Is this going to be part of, health and welfare should recommend?
I don't know.
Because we've done supervised visitation, but it's always been in the base. We just want to have, because I know it's such an even, but it's only new to the one fund,
Right, it's a new one-time, sort of over and above
But it's
what's in the
not-
base.
but it's not new.
It's not as new thing, correct. Then line 19, $4 million for DCF temporary secure treatment facility for youth. My understanding is this is to cover while more permanent facilities are built out.
And the money's at DCF, but I
Correct.
noticed the youth. Could be with them. Okay.
Line 20, at the Agency of Human Services, additional funding for the legal aid helpline. This would get, I believe, increased to $100,000 of global commitment funding. Yeah, $40,000 of, I think it's $40,000 of federal funding, $60,000 of state funding. It's new. My understanding is it's something that's legal aid has done, but it's new that the state would call it out specifically and provide additional funding for it.
Okay.
And line 21, the legal aid immigration attorney. This is a new attorney position at Vermont Legal Aid by the state.
Okay.
Line 22, additional $500,000 of general fund to for Meals on Wheels. So in the sense, because this is a global commitment appropriation, so $500,000 would go to AHS central office, and then additional federal funds to match it to about $619,000 for a total appropriation of 1.1 million. A global commitment in disabilities, aging, and independent living. This is
So, this one as well as the Dale Meals on Wheels 1100K too are also in our memo.
Okay.
I would just say, we hope that when we get around, because there's a number of there's money for food appropriations, that we look at them collectively.
We did that one sheet last year, Amy.
Break that down.
Remember that food thing? So we could do a new table of all the food programs.
As long as we're paused here a minute, I just want to say for some of these that were originally reductions in fees, which are back as one times. I would love to see them go back into base, but I'm happy to have more of that conversation.
Okay. Like the super,
I think that could apply to a handful of these, but some of that is in our letter, but I'm also thinking about lines 50 and 60. But
Okay, so on line 23, this is similar to the stuff on line 15, the nurturing parenting program. There has to be a little bit of general fund that goes to the agency central office to draw down global commitment funds that can be used for this appropriation. So this just reflects the GM match of that program. Line 24, BOREC grants. For an additional $500,000, there's $100,000 in the Forest and Parks base for BOREC currently.
So FDR gives them $100,000 every year,
Yes,
and this would raise it to 600,000.
this would be an additional 500 just in FY 27 to change the base.
What is homework again?
Recreation. Like that.
I think it's the council.
Okay,
Outdoor rec,
all right.
recreational, economic.
Good chance of that.
So, but it's increasing, so it's 500,000 one time, but the 100 in base would continue, so they get 600.
Line 25, serve, learn, and earn. This would add $300,000 to that program. There's already $500,000 in FDR's base budget.
This is one that is in our letter about moving it to things.
This is, but keeping the 300,000 increase, but have it as a base, that was one time.
So total will be
Okay,
So line 26, Department for Housing and Community Development, the Manufactured Home Improvement Program, it's recommended by the governor, supported by the House.
is it the MER?
MER, I think. There's $2 million in the base budget for this program. This would add an additional $1,800,000.
Okay,
And then in line 27, the rental arrears fund would be a grant to the Vermont State Housing Authority. One time for $1 million. This is something that's in H 772. As passed by the House.
So we closing these or what are we doing? These just stuff.
we're,
Um,
well, if you have a concern or then it is good to know now.
Well, we're just taking testimony on 8772 now in judiciary. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about the bill before sure it's $1 million for the rental of there. So I asked the question.
Is that in the language?
Yeah. So that's up all over.
Yeah.
Yes.
The bill doesn't pass, so you don't
Yeah.
agree to it, you don't very much time. International Development Office, which is mostly Canada, but can do other things.
And you've done this one before. Line 29, the Vermont Professionals of Color Network. House added $75,000, it rounds up to 80 of us. But this is in addition to the GROW grants that are in the base budget and Department for Economic Development.
It rounds it up.
And 75 just to be.
Then, but you somewhere know what the original was about.
So this is 60 plus 8.
Plus 75,000, yeah,
Why is it 70?
It rounds up.
it rounds up.
They don't let you go to the third
Oh.
decimal. That's its no.
Okay.
I refuse to let you budget to the dollar on principle.
Why can you put? Okay. So I can't do a 5, but I can only do a 7.
Well, I'm gonna do 2 digits, we gotta, otherwise
That's
the
weird.
decimals won't line up.
That's weird.
You just have to trust me. In the language, it says 75,000. Okay, so in line 30, this was one that you all discussed yesterday, adding $1 million to the Rural Industrial Development Program.
This is in S326.
This is the one where there's 4 million a day.
No, there's no money in base in this program.
Okay.
But we put 5 million into it several years ago. And they still have a little bit of money in the House Commerce Committee has changed the program criteria. And talking about with the change in criteria, we could add 1 million if it supports some federally impacted properties. Program could get going again. There is money in the program that's kind of stalled out with the projects that could use it under the current condition. Use the restrictions on it now, we're making it not that usable. So the House is changing language to it. But then since the bill came to them after the House budget passed, I'm looking at that million.
Okay.
Oh, do you want to change the non-medical?
Yeah, so it's the same, that somebody times,
Yeah, and it's not.
100 grand.
That was, we had 600,000 last year.
And now we're 400 done?
On line 32, 150,000 was added by the House to provide grants to schools to purchase AEDs. New appropriation,
To purchase what?
AEDs.
Okay. Move over.
Line 33, this is restored, this backfills. Oh, this is more complicated. This is for the youth council. They're anticipating loss in federal funds. So we had requested the House add $140,000 to maintain their program in the event that federal funds are eliminated.
In the event, when would we know?
Yeah, I'm trying to find out some more information. Might propose some language that appropriates the money if they don't get the money.
Yeah,
Instead of
Yeah.
appropriating it, saying they could come to our fiscal committee. for-
yeah,
Yeah, because I've heard that it's not a done deal if they've lost the money.
well, that's what I'm thinking, if we start setting up individual contingencies for potential loss, you know, it will mushroom quickly.
Yes,
It's what I heard is so far, feds haven't reduced them.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
it's kind of like we did with the Section 8 housing and DA, remember? They thought they were gonna lose, it. They weren't sure how much and when.
Yeah,
We said, well, here's some language.
if they did lose it, we could restore to the BAA.
Right, that's one of the things I'm trying to find out, is like how much money they have, when did they spend it?
Yeah.
It's like, do they need this monthly, or do they need it just like yearly?
Does that, if anything, that might qualify for the money, set aside money for federal losses?
It could be, but it's, the language we have right now as a trigger for the board to do it, so that it would be too low to trigger that. I mean, e-board could do it separately, they could just say that and move it around. And I think to take it out of that federal fund just for this, it doesn't get to the emergency fund. Then they probably have to wait for the BA. So I'm trying to find some more information.
So line 34, all had discussed $800,000 Department of Health for recovery centers.
Senator Lyons, is this something that your memo's going to talk about at all?
The memo does not talk about this, but I think we probably should have a conversation since it's a new program and it's, it's $8 million, but we can look at it.
800,000.
800, sorry.
not-
That was a big jump.
It's not new. We spent money last year one time and maybe.
Yeah, the 1,200 services.
Right.
I have the printout and who's getting what, and the recovery centers really are important across the state. So,
And this-
yeah, and my committee does support this piece
and
separate from our memo.
Is it after they come to the prevention funds?
It's come from opioid funds and the prevention fund.
Yeah, this is the opioid settlement dollars. I think.
I think in the past, but the state didn't want to do that. We'll have to see if there's a way to fund it because it's the settlement site. Maybe 135.
Line 35, community outreach program at Department of Mental Health. This was, I believe this is for the Howard Center. There was a base reduction, and this is a one-time backfill of that program. Same with the next one, the Department of Mental Health, day shelter at CDOEO. Was funded with a one-time appropriation from 2020 through 2026.
That one is in our memo.
Okay,
That's
Uh,
it.
home share,
Is additional funding for Home Share Vermont, Department of Disabilities, Aging and Living. There is currently $280,000 of global commitment in the base budget for this.
okay,
Line 38, this is what you spoke about yesterday, additional funding for adult days to establish some adult day programs.
It's not really,
It's not big, right? We've done that.
and were you gonna find more information about it, or did you really want to just?
I have some language to go with it.
Okay.
Okay. And now we're on OFA Vermont. Crop cash plus farm share program. The House added $500,000 to this program. We've done this several times in the past.
And
It's one time.
we'll see all the food in the table.
Yeah. Line 40, the House added an additional $300,000 to the conservation district's appropriation. There's $400,000 base. The governor recommended reducing the base by $1 million.
So it gets up, doesn't even get up to the million base reduction.
Correct.
It's a million base reduction is what you end up, it used to be 1.4 and they lowered it to 400.
Correct.
And then the House did one time to get it to 700.
Line 41, to the Vermont Food Bank, the Vermonters Feeding Vermonters program. $400,000, there was $500,000 appropriated in FY26.
Okay.
Line 42, spoke about this yesterday, an additional $500,000 for the Working Lands program, there's $1 million.
I thought the House had increased them now.
Line 43, additional $90,000 for the community radio program. Line 44,
Is that their whole appropriation? No.
no. there's-
Well, Van has, they're kind of working with community access to television. And then the radio got 90,000 last year through emergency management to help them with community radio providing emergency communications during disasters. So this is the same one time they got last year, but they're trying to work and collaborate with the community access TVs and even try to merge where possible.
Line 44, this is a one-time appropriation that occurs every other year. To the Secretary of State's office to support, local elections and election years. Line 45, half $50,000 for the Civic Journalism Awards. This was done in FY.
It's the past year. Secretary of State, but the awards are chosen by the UVM journalism. Community News Service. Yeah, they create a panel of hired journalists, and then it gets matched by the Vermont Community Foundation, who puts in 50,000, so they have 100,000 to support local civic journalism.
If I can go back a line to the
Elections.
elections. I'm in general, like I'm pro for elections.
Okay.
But would love to, I mean, I don't think it makes sense to change this for this year, because this is what is needed, but in the next off year, it makes sense to me to try to
Level
have,
it down.
put it in the base and just have it be there every year. I mean, we know we're gonna have the elections every couple of years, like, let's just plan. Let's. Please, let's really do.
Well, some people want having events, so it's relevant elections every year.
Right, well, but what I'm saying is even if it's biannual, let's put in money every year.
But
So that way, and then I don't have to be once.
we
Anyway,
could do
that's
it for radios, we could do it for election.
exactly, that's what it's like
If we can
saying.
do it for the 50.
Yeah, we do.
Yes, so, but that doesn't, like, we need this, I'm not
Yeah.
objecting to this.
Right, okay. Fine, well,
You want a budget? Plan?
I know, shocking.
On line 46, $200,000 to the Department of Labor for advanced Vermont. Last year there was 150,000 for advanced Vermont.
Was, was that total last year? Is it 150?
the 150 one time?
Yeah, last year, was that all there was?
Believe so.
I think in years past, they might have gotten more. I think it's been, the governor has been putting in budget.
There's nothing, yeah, and, I don't think they could make it on that, but I did get that. Right.
Line 47 at the Agency of Education, the Child and Adult Care Food Program.
This is different than what they were in here talking about an educated.
Yes,
This is like what I call this summer feeding.
correct. This is for summer meals. The governor reduced the base appropriation for this. Line 40,
So this could also go on the foods table. Table on the food on the table.
line 48 is the municipal technical assistance at BCRD with a house average of $250,000.
And it's just it's the existing program that we started after the floods, like when Senator Watson and Norris were on Deborah Ops. It's the same thing.
Sounds familiar, but I think this is also related, you know, like the program of it that helps municipalities leverage.
Like
Greater
apply for
dollar
grants, find grants, things like that.
It was a much larger number back then, so.
Right, yeah. And I think
Yeah.
it was even trying to get it. large.
And I think this is in our letter.
Okay.
Whatever, I think it's, I have to go back and check.
Yeah, it was something, maybe it was something like this or 5 minute American.
Yeah, I think it was more, right, I think it was more.
It was more, yeah.
Yeah.
Vermont. 250th anniversary.
Yeah.
Or Vermont's celebrating. It's not Vermont's 250th. Yeah.
There were some one-time funds for this back in 2024, additional $50,000.
Did we know? Guess I should ask the house, like what it was that they. Her testimony on these. Why we needed $50,000 above the 117 that was already appropriated, and the governor didn't think we needed.
Can't remember.
That's the weird part.
That's the what?
That's the weird part to me, is that ACC's seems to want it. But gonna do
Yeah, must be for some things. Painting the Bennington Monument, red, white, and blue, maybe. But then,
Line 50 is the pre-COVID grants. The House funded this at $2.2 million out of the general fund.
And we have an extremely valuable person.
it comes from the fire and trust. Okay. Line 51.
Line 51, the Vermont Income Tax Assistance Program at the Treasurer's Office. We don't want time for this in FY 26.
And
Line 52, some funding for the treasurer, it's also $75,000 for an amortization. on the pension system that's outlined in H 567.
And H 567. That got that. This is there's nothing cheap.
No, it's the treasurer's office.
Oh,
So
right.
there's multiple.
This is the one of the, as we get closer to 2038.
Correct.
I just forgot.
The one below that is funding for
Regular
the
cheap.
Route G study. Line 54 is additional funding for per diems for the county and regional governance study committee. This is in H 762.
And that's different than the Wyndham County Sheriff. Yep. But isn't the regional government study already started?
Yes, my understanding is started, they didn't complete their work. This bill kicks out the dates when their study is.
It gives them more money.
You get some more money for diem.
Okay, so
Yep, this is one we talked about yesterday. 130,000 or 125,000 for the Cape. Regions at
is this on your
resources.
It's on our list.
What is it again? I mean, I know it's TAPO though. You know what TAPO expecting. What was the need?
Yeah.
Well, this is the transition day in our thing.
Yeah, for consultant, provide training for ENR. And AFM staff on implementation of the inspection for keepers.
So it's not positions, it's training.
It's training,
Training.
yeah, for just the, so, you know,
Some people are gonna be newly doing TAPO.
yes. So this is, you know, should be funded at truthfully at one time.
True one.
Unlike elections.
Yes.
And then line 58 is the fuel sales registry. That we talked about yesterday, for 200,000, and I could not remember if it was H.
Yes.
740, that's right, that's okay,
So,
take the question mark.
which is faster.
I'm still talking.
Those are all of the one-time appropriations. That would be in the big bill, and these are also subject to your discretion in turn. Well, we have to add the appropriations for all the other bills into the big bill because all of those other bills have left the body. So we would add them into the appropriate places. It might be helpful. I'll walk through the House bills because they're on here first. Might be helpful to look at the first sheet that I handed out, which has all the bills, the detail on all the bills and what all the money would be for all of the bills.
We won't go through the blue highlight.
But I'll quickly go through the.
You put them all in here.
Correct.
Yeah.
The line 59, 867, an act related to legislative operations and government accountability. This would be a one-time appropriation to cover 2 years of expenses for a limited service position at the joint fiscal office to help sort of do a pilot project on government accountability. And I have, you will know more than I do which of where these bills are.
Yeah,
They're going to.
they are working on that bill. Right now, as soon as they're somehow.
H 211 funding for the data broker bill. H 559 funding for the parole board bill. There's this money in the base. There's also, or there's money in the base. There's also one side thing.
Is that in fiduciary? 559.
I believe that's the one you discussed earlier. That's corrections institutes. H 577. And actually, it's the prescription drug discount card program that will be at the treasurer's office. This is money for advertising, I believe.
And the 577 is the omnibus treasure bill.
No,
Oh,
that 567.
right.
577 is the prescription drug program. H778 is related to dam safety.
These are positions.
Don't
They're
do
not,
their
it's a pilot project.
Yeah.
And
we have still.
And what does it do?
so. Right now, dam owners are required to have an emergency action plan. But there's an emergency operations plan, which the municipality needs to have, should there be a dam failure. The thing is, if the dam failure occurs, multiple municipalities, depending on the
Might
shed.
be-
Yes, and that, so those plans need to be coordinated with each other. And so it's a pilot to try to set that up. And for, two dams, across the state, one big dam with a large population, one small dam, or small, one for a small population. Use that as a template to try to create coordinated operations plans for other dams across the state.
Thank you.
Yes.
In particular during emergency, high water emergencies.
Yeah, in case, so for all the stages that would lead up to a potential dam thing.
Okay.
Have you, I'll ask the question.
It's, I think it's very likely to pass.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to this. I know we're way behind on a review of inspection of dams, which is necessary.
But we added, yeah, stations.
Yes, and
We added, but I don't know if we're still behind.
We're not adding any new names.
No, but I don't like it if they're not inspected.
they're catching up on the rules that
I do, but that's all I wanted to hear.
So here's the one appropriation and miscellaneous tax bill.
Yep, this is for every 10 years, JFO, the 10-year tax study, we gotta hire some people to help do that. So that's what that appropriation is for. And then line 65, an act related to emergency management, this is for the ready response grant program with the food bank. Food available.
Okay, and then we have all the Senate bills that we already put on your other sheet.
Yeah, I can walk through all of them, or you can look at them. You probably know more about them than I do.
And then the VSP already has a special fund for radio equipment replacement.
The budget would create the fund for radio equipment replacement. I know there was a conversation last week about other equipment replacement at VSP.
But we're wondering about firearms radios for both VSP and Fish and Wildlife Wardens. And is there a way to either not create four special funds, create one special fund that does them all, or just have them, this is part of their budget?
I mean, I would create one special fund to rule them all.
Right.
That,
Right.
hopefully I'm not in the darkness fine.
yeah,
Lots of light, lots of light.
lots of light. And yeah, and then you could set up the rules around it, but that VSP could utilize that. You may
One of VSP with Fish and Wildlife.
probably want to do two separate sinking funds, and technically they would be sinking funds, and that you put money into them and then you take the money out when you need to spend it. You probably want to do one for Fish and Wildlife and one for VSP, but you wouldn't have to. But that might be the best way to do it. And you would call it, the state police equipment fund as opposed to the radio fund.
What are we calling it, sinking fund?
Sinking fund.
So then the House added 350,000 to domestic and sexual violence special fund. In the FY 2026 budget, there was 450.
I think this is the one that gets money from marriage license.
Yes, and this is basically, this is a straight pass here to the network. And then it has to go.
I'm paying for the services, it's on it too.
Yes.
Line 83, The House added $1 million to the Communications and Information Technology Fund. This is the ADS fund that had it, so it's a pretty sizable deficit. It's just to chip away at it. Excuse me.
So the governor didn't put anything?
Not anything new. The governor's budget included the changes to ADS to try to stop the continued structural issues. The House had an additional $1 million. They decided to put $1 million into the funding as well.
So this, the next one, the disaster mitigation fund is for the cumulative unfunded.
Correct, yeah, for the towns that did, that had FEMA denials. I believe you took testimony from Doug Barnum about rather than running it through that special fund, appropriating it directly to the agency of transportation. So there would be a technical update to appropriate that to going, if this is something you wanted to do.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do one way or the other.
Line 85, the Farm Security Fund. Talked about this yesterday, $3 million into that fund. This line item, the education fund to backfill the motor vehicle purchase use tax phase down. This one will be part of the conversation with finance, the miscellaneous tax bill and transportation.
These are-
Getting all of those funds.
It's like a
Bill.
stage map between the three funds. You're putting your money on.
Whichever wasn't.
Yes, that's Bob will be, it will be perfect.
And then line 87 is the education fund property tax relief. $104.9 million transfer to the education fund. To support property tax relief.
So, and I know that the Hunter House has proposed. Smaller line up.
Dollar amount, they want to put into.
I see it. It's repeated here. How does it appear elsewhere?
Yeah, so the House proposal is to make the full transfer to the education fund
And then,
and then decide how to allocate the money. And I believe the yield bill that came out of the House said, reserve 50 million and utilize 50 million. That's available from the general fund this year. So from the general fund perspective, regardless of what happens to the yield bill, $105 million transfers.
And how do we get to 104.91? If you go up to your green.
Yep.
And it's the 30 and 70, where's the other
30 and 70. So that's a
4 million?
good thing to point out. So in the miscellaneous tax bill, part of the changes related to the link up. There's actually a reduction in FY 2026 revenue anticipated of $3.96 million. So in the governor's budget, he had originally proposed take the money that's carried forward, the $74.9 million plus the $30 million to come up with 105.
No, that's it.
With the changes in the miscellaneous tax bill, the sort of direct connection isn't as clean. But so it's this, whatever's on the bottom line, plus $30 million, plus whatever other general fund you need to get to $105 million.
So even though there's that. Well, almost $4 million loss for this thing, the House just said, well, we'll try and get something.
Correct. And there's a $4 million loss in 2026, but then a $50 million gain in 2027. So it sort of washes out. So there's a net positive amount. What?
well,
Correct.
But
They spend a little bit.
Do they spend? Well, they spend all that, that's what the 4 million
Correct.
difference, basically.
Yes.
They don't stay just for this,
Not specific, right? From the
kind
context
of
of
allocated on the bottom.
they transfer that full amount, so they made sure they accounted for that full transfer through all of the resources available to the general. fund.
So they didn't spend all 50 million that they created with the decouple.
They didn't spend it all. The House budget had
4 million to make up the difference.
Correct. The house had about $130,000 on the bottom line. At the end, when they were all done.
130 million.
130,000 there is, my understanding is in the education transformation bill that's currently being debated in the House. They added an appropriation of $75,000 for a study. Pre-K, again, at the joint fiscal office, so there's less than $130,000 left if everything passes and everybody goes there. Pretty much it's zero.
So the 9.84 subtotal of the bills, line 78. That's just the other bills, not the 2.95 other. So that's total is 12.7, line 79. That is this, well, we got the set of numbers, not considering what we might do, bring with the house, right? So it's additional 12.79
Yes,
of numbers that aren't in the house.
correct. The 12.79 includes the 9.8 above on line 78, that's the other bills, plus the 2.95. The other ones have.
And all of those are on the sheet. Are there anything in this sheet that aren't on the sheet?
Hopefully not,
Or sheet?
if I did my job. Maybe checked it. Hopefully we got it all.
Okay. So it's safe to say that we're 20 million over budget.
Correct.
Or under budget. Depending. We would have to cut $20 million out of these two sheets to have a balance left. Or create $20 million in revenue, or take $20 million from some other programs. Fun? Right? And hopefully Senator Lyons feeling robustly healthy tomorrow. We'll talk about human services.
Yep, I'll be glad to. And while we're going through and looking at some of the new programs, I'm thinking about other things, so it'll be a good discussion.
Okay. So I might just, because if we're gonna do this by Friday, we're gonna need to make some decisions tomorrow. So tonight I might sit down with Chuck Fiscal and make a proposal on this that I can show you. Then you can tell me what I got. Correct. Okay.
Okay.
There's no questions, comments?